Red. Why the fuck doesn't it work anymore? I need Rev. I'm going to review Yosh and I can't get super pissed if not for fucking Rev. I need Rev to get properly angry for Yosh. What else am I going to review if not Yosh? I mean, if Rev was here, he would beat that shit up with one punch. One punch. That's an idea. Yeah, okay, fuck it. We're reviewing One Punch Man. Hit it, Jonathan! One Punch Man. Unless you've been living under a rock the last couple of years, you already know who this bald, magnificent bastard is, as the series has become not just a manga and anime phenomenon, but also an internet meme sensation. The manga and anime is written by the writer using the pseudonym One and illustrated by arguably one of the greatest manga artists ever, Yusuke Murata. Not as good as the artist for Berserk, but that's an unfair comparison.
All praise be to Kentaro Miura.
One began publishing One Punch Man as a webcomic in 2009. As of July 2016, the webcomic has released 108 chapters. When the series became popular, receiving 7.9 million hits by June 2012, Yusuke Murata of iShield 21 fame contacted One with a proposal to redraw the comic for a digital publication in weekly Young Jump's spin-off manga website, Young Jump Webcomics. The manga series had 2.2 million copies in print in November 2013, 3.2 million copies in April 2014, and 4.5 million copies in November 2014. The series was one of the 10 nominated for the 7th annual Manga Taisho Award in 2014. Once released in the United States, both the first and second volumes debuted on the New York Times manga bestseller list at first and second place respectively, and stayed there for 2 weeks. The series was nominated for an Eisner Award in 2015. Now, I hate to be a hipster, and I will happily admit I'm usually the last person to hit the hype of something, but with One Punch Man, I was on this manga's hype train long before it hit its stride here in the West. One Punch Man quickly established itself as a symbol here in the West with its over-the-top action and laughably silly plot. People just loved everything about it. There was never a dull moment, and even though it was an homage as well as a parody of the whole hero genre, it hit home run after home run in both its hilarious meme-fueled scenes, its heart-pounding action, and its killer soundtrack. I dare you to find a single person who can listen to the One Punch Man theme and not get hyped up. I mean, you could be in a freaking coma and you would still get pumped up after hearing this theme. It is common knowledge today, but back when I initially read the manga, I had no idea that One Punch Man started out as a webcomic. But yeah, the hit series that took the world by storm actually had its humble beginnings as a webcomic, of which one took a major leap of faith, quit his job, and invested all his time into, which was enough for Murata of all people to take notice. Senpai has never noticed anyone harder. So let's take a look at the webcomic that started one of my favorite animes and mangas ever, Riiser the Comic. Or as it's better known as, One Punch Man. So if you look at the web, Jesus Christ on a tricycle. Okay. I don't think anyone who knew that One Punch Man started out as a webcomic didn't also know about the downright silly art style. It is to the point where one can be in almost disbelief that this comic got so popular, and then there's comics that look like this that has hardly left the ground yet. But trust me when I say, you'll wanna stick around for the art section of this review, cause as bad as this art looks, it's actually really good. Now comes the funny part where I have to talk to you guys like you have never heard of One Punch Man. One Punch Man takes place in a different world where superheroes and supervillains are as normal as cops and robbers. It's to the point where being a superhero is now considered a daily job, so much so that the bar for what qualifies as a superhero has been lowered to an almost laughable extreme, where you can apparently be a hero if you just happen to be good at, say, singing in the shower. I'm still in a dream, snaking on. At the pinnacle of this hero thing is the guy who unknowingly started it all. Saitama. Yep, this dude. Mr. One Punch Man himself and the most unthreatening guy the world has ever seen. Maybe next to this dude, I don't know. But don't be fooled. As the name of the comic would suggest, Saitama is so powerful that he finishes every fight in one punch. And that's not just until a particularly threatening foe comes up and breaks the entire narrative like with most comics. But it manages to stick like that all the way through. In fact, the main drama point with the entire comic is that Saitama wants to find an enemy that can give him the thrill of combat again. One who can challenge him and last for more than, well, one punch. You would think this would get repetitive, but it really doesn't. The comic manages to always subvert your expectations. Best as you think that, oh shit, this is going to be the one to challenge Saitama, it's never the case, and it somehow manages to be either incredibly hype or hilarious every time. It's one of the cases where the punchline is the same, punchline, but the setup is different every time. It's not easy to do, but one manages to pull it off almost flawlessly. In fact, despite what your first observation may be, one is actually incredibly skilled. One might first appear to be just a putz fumbling around and getting lucky, but one often displays a rather impressive amount of skills in the small things he does that may not be noticed in your first read-through. One of the things I noticed was one's impressive knowledge about tropes and how to circumvent them. Now, I've several times in this very season in fact stated how most modern anime is trash, and most of that comes down to tropes. Every anime today follows an incredibly predicted pattern, and it's a pattern usually governed or created by tropes. Tell me, how many times have you seen a normal high school boy with disheveled bed hair one day coming into contact with something alien, but thanks to a person knowing a lot about the alien thing and some specific skills, he is able to overcome that obstacle and his entire life is turned upside down. If this sounds like every shonen battle manga you'd find today, then that's because it is. Let's not even begin to talk about character archetypes, such as the over-analytical one, the spunky fiery one that lives in the now, the tsundere or the clumsy idiot. And of course, can't forget about ecchi, cause we can't very well hope to keep the audience hooked if they don't have a pair of tits to look at. Even if it's fucking slime.
Slime! Now, how goddamn horny must you be to stick your dick in slime?
Long story short, most anime nowadays is awfully predictable to the point of you just sitting and pondering, oh, when does the
Moe.
Characters show up. I mean, fuck, even sports animes these days almost all try to be different by not having the protagonist win big events for the sake of being different. The problem is that everyone is trying to be different in the same way, which, comedically enough, makes them all the same. This is why I think when there's animes and mangas out there that defies the tropes and patterns, they usually take the world by storm. Sure enough, the mainstream trope-filled mangas and animes that stick to the formula also work, but they don't become a phenomenon that transcends time, like Dragon Ball, JoJo, Berserk, or Gurren Lagann. You knew it was coming, so shoot me! I mean, I guess you can say dog shit like Sword Art Online is super big as well and is talked about a ton on the internet, although mostly about how shit tier it is and how blatantly it rips off Berserk. To get back to what I was talking about before, one understands these tropes and patterns, and it is exactly because he knows of them that he is able to ridicule and transcend them. In fact, a lot of times in this comic it feels like Saitama is so much like a normal person with knowledge of modern manga and anime tropes that the humor comes from how realistically he reacts to the most stupid shit around him. It's kind of like playing Final Fantasy and you as a player immediately know you are the villain, fuck you!
Lysandaroth, you are behind all this? Yes, it was I. My machinations lay undetected for years, for I'm a master of deception.
If it feels like I haven't touched much of the plot, it's because it's similar to describing the plot of, say, Superman. A guy with omnipotent powers saves the world from various threats and sometimes specific drama ensues. But if I truly do have to go into more specifics, Saitama is a normal businessman who gets fired from his job. When at this low, he comes across a deformed crabman who wishes to kill a kid with a ballsack chin. This reminds Saitama of his younger self that used to look up to the superheroes he'd read about in comics and saw on cartoons, and it sparked his love for them. If you were a kid once and watched Power Rangers and at no point thought, I wanna be a Power Ranger too, you're dead to me. After years of kinda sorta mediocre training, Saitama has reached a strength rivaling the gods, in which he is able to beat every opponent with a single punch, which kinda takes the fun out of it. It's like playing a game completely on god mode. Saitama finds that he has a better chance of fighting stronger enemies if he gets a higher rank as a superhero, and the only way of doing that is by signing up for the Hero Institute. Obviously, Saitama flaws every physical exam, but because his focus in being a hero is completely alien to the Institute, he gets assigned a low rank and thus he has to fight his way up to a top rank. As a matter of fact, as silly as One Punch Man is, this particular theme helps dealing with some interesting concepts. Like we talked about before, if you're dealing with a premise or a plot that is not super new and different, you can then use that to deal with things that the other things hasn't touched upon. In this case, the whole hero saving the day concept is as familiar to us as "and they lived happily ever after." It's stuff we know like the back of our hand, therefore it uses something familiar to tackle something unfamiliar, such as what is a hero? And this is where we get into the core of One Punch Man. Yep, this shit is deeper than you just might think. Out of the many heroes that One Punch Man shows us, there is one that has won the heart of many who has read the comic or seen the anime. And it is the most fearless hero of them all. The biggest, diggest OG. The guy who writes for justice and nothing more. The guy who even Chuck Norris has to bow for. Moomin Rider. Yeah, this guy. And no, he doesn't have any special power. He's actually rather weak, although he's pretty good at riding a bike, I suppose. Anyway, Moomin Rider has won many people's heart just for being the guy who tries despite the odds. At one point, several heroes and civilians are killed and terrorized by a villain known as the Sea King. No, not that Sea King. Although Sea King, fuck yeah.
Sea King! Sea King! Sea King!
Up to this point, we've seen many different heroes, some of which are actually questionable in terms of their motivation. They all aim to fight the big bad guy, but some only care about money, others about how cool they look in front of others. Heck, some even hide because they're afraid of dying. And then there's Moomin Rider. Now, like I stated before, Moomin Rider is an asshat with a biker helmet with the same power level as your average accountant. Despite of this, without a second of hesitation, he puts his life on the line to fight the Sea King. And gets absolutely fucking wrecked. Despite of that, he keeps coming back, and in this scene we see what a hero can be other than just a guy with a cape that comes in and saves the day. Moomin Rider inspires the crowd, the civilians stop being afraid, they band together cheering him on. And then shortly after, Saitama comes and wrecks the Sea King's shit.
Now, Mother's Basement has already made an amazing analysis of this scene, and if you like One Punch Man, I implore you to go check out that video.
Now, what's so good about this? Well, a bunch of things. As silly and dumb as One Punch Man is, one can sometimes completely miss the brilliance and interesting concepts underneath. Something I might be talking about more in a new Patreon exclusive thing I'll be making. One has an impeccable ability of doing amazing shit in places where it should be stupid as all hell. Much like how One Punch Man is silly the times it should be serious, and serious the times it should be silly. Though this single scene, this single confrontation, we see many different sides of what a hero can be, what it should be, and how it affects the world around them. If you read One Punch Man, you'll see exactly who gets the praise here and who doesn't. You'll see what matters to the people as well as what matters to the world, and almost as importantly, what matters to the hero. One Punch Man dares to be more than just your typical villain of the week thing. It goes beyond that and subtly dares asking questions that are rather thought-provoking.
I absolutely love thought-provoking stuff. I mean, shit, that's the reason why I keep hopping on and on and on about Gurren Lagann and Metal Gear. It's things that make you stop up and think.
One Punch Man is not without its flaws though. A thing that both the manga and webcomic suffers from is problem with its pacing. At around chapter 35 there's a fight that lasts for several chapters where you're getting entire cities destroyed like it was nothing, and after that fight, it for some reason tones it down. After that it becomes a lot more down to earth again, and it's kinda hard to get hype seeing Saitama punching something that wouldn't threaten a city block, after punching a guy so hard that he split the clouds halfway across the globe. There's a reason why Dragon Ball had a constant escalation. You don't get hype seeing a guy beating someone who's way weaker than his former opponent, unless that new guy has some sort of ace up his sleeve. I mean, how'd you like it if there was an entire arc where Son Goku beat the shit out of an old guy in a wheelchair? You'd be bored to sleep.
Okay, the kind of sort of sadistic side of me would maybe find that rather funny.
I also have a very real worry that one day One is going to double down on his explanation behind Saitama's powers. The original explanation for Saitama's unreal strength is that he has done a training regimen that even I can and have done for a few years, and that's why he's now so strong. But throughout the series, more and more people are talking about other possible explanations for this ludicrous strength. They've fortunately all been debunked, but I just worry that one day we will get some stupid reason when all I really want is just for Saitama to have just done a simple, not that super hard training regimen for a few years, and that's like the real morale of the story. Like, not what makes a true hero or remember what you fight for, but rather get off your ass, you can be a cool guy if you exercise.
Heck, that would even go super well with the opening theme of One Punch Man. You put that on and before you know it you're bench pressing, I don't know, cars or some shit.
One Punch Man is stupid, but that doesn't mean it's not stupid made well. And I love when stupid is made well. And you motherfuckers who think I didn't like Les Lindas because everything had to be super serious and not dumb can play that line on fucking repeat until you choke on it. What was I saying? Right, One Punch Man is stupid, but it's stupid in the best way. It's like a good clown. A good clown will throw a pie in his face and make it funny because he knows the timing and execution. If you just smack yourself in the face with a pie for no reason, people are just gonna think you're weird and ask you stuff such as, who are you and why are you at my kid's birthday party? In the grand whole, One Punch Man is about Saitama and his story, but there are many other different heroes that you learn about and get to care about. This means that you still have the whole drama thing in a comic where the protagonist kills everything with one shot, cause his friends doesn't, and they get put in real dangerous situations. And believe you me when I say that despite of the art, you get the exact quality from a battle manga in a webcomic. There's tension, cool fights, interesting abilities, and unique characters. In fact, the only thing this comic doesn't have in that quality department is the art.
Clever segue!
Oh shit, that's bad.
The first thing people probably think when they see the art is, oh my god, make it stop, what the fuck is this Sonichu shit? Cause, well, let's be real here, this art makes you envy the sheer skill and talent behind stick figures. I mean, look at these goddamn hands! These are baby's first hands! These are the type of hands that usually end up behind someone's head or back when the artist doesn't feel confident in their hand drawing skills.
You know exactly what I'm referring to.
The anatomy is also hot garbage. The body structure changes all the fucking time. Even the faces seem to change their bone structure, and not just for the usual reason, which is typically comedic effect, but just because one seems to never do any pre-work. Like he doesn't sketch something first, he just does it, and not in the same cool way that some artists I've seen do it, but rather what a child does when they are just drawing for poops and giggles. And while there is some childish charm to that, it's still super ugly to look at. Like, oh my god.
Holy fuck, that's bad.
It's like my first videos. Don't watch them!
Yet, as terrible as the art looks, I'm gonna blow your mind here and tell you that this art, for a comic, is better both than this art and this art. Now, you can chalk some of this up as just personal spite against at least one of these comics, but fact of the matter is that several times during both of these comics, you don't know what is going on. The artist doesn't properly know how to convey what is going on, and in Philip Brown's own words, he'd often, because of that, default into having his characters go on long monologues about what has happened or what they're going to do. I'm sure Philip Brown grew out of this habit, but Cello sure as shit didn't. Now, as general artists, you'd have to be freaking blind to say that Philip and Cello aren't better than one. But in terms of comic artists, one has them beat to an almost ludicrous extreme.
Much like the writing of One Punch Man, one manages to show that even though this looks like the stupidest shit ever, there's an insane knowledge about the core principles.
As goofy and childish looking as the art is, and how much of a mess a frame may be, you're never confused as to what is happening. You always know exactly what it is one wants to convey. If David and Liz Lily's art is a poem, one's art is the aloof one word. In Dreamkeepers you have the pretty colors, the great anatomy, the clever designs, the backgrounds, and much more. And all of that while still conveying the intended information. And then you got one who just conveys the information and nothing more.
It's similar to a poem where the poem is, "Ah, the fair maiden, with kisses like scarlet sunrises, hair like sunstruck ocean, and shaped by the cosmos itself." And then you got one who just says, "Bitch be fine."
Again, it cannot be understated how bad the art looks, but at the same time it's much like a storyboard. A storyboard is not supposed to be pretty or detailed. It's only there for you to get an idea of what is happening. It's the same thing with one's art. One manages to convey exactly what should be conveyed and nothing whatsoever more. This is a guy who stuck with and just worked on the basics again and again and again. Nothing but the basics. Like, we're talking a dude who can't draw for shit, but knows exactly what to draw, if that makes any sense. I mean, it's to the point where one is able to convey that Genos, Saitama's assistant, is super cool with how he draws him posing, and you'd be able to get that idea despite Genos looking like this.
Jesus fucking Christ, that's terrible.
Looks like this robot dude's looks are still running on Windows Vista.
If you want to learn about the basics of comic art, look no further than this comic. It may be stuff that's obvious to you, but you don't pick up on exactly because it's so obvious. Like these 2 pages here, for example. Saitama is punching the Sea King in the stomach at neck-breaking speeds. You get that feeling because the figurative camera doesn't get to move. It perfectly conveys a speed out of the ordinary, especially with Saitama hardly moving in the frame as well. It's like if it was a movie, Saitama would be moving so fast that it wouldn't even be able to use different angles to show the attack and add effects. One frame Saitama is doing nothing, the next frame he's punching the Sea King to oblivion.
And no matter how many times I watch that scene, I'm just constantly imagining this.
Somebody dead. Get fucked. Somebody dead. Get fucked. Somebody dead. Somebody dead.
Another shot you can take a look at to just understand the raw skills of the basics that one possesses is this one here, where Saitama has released one of his killer moves, the Serious Punch. Again, this is a shot that you wouldn't think very much of unless you gave a shit about how comics were made. It's just Saitama and some ruins. And that's exactly it. It's Saitama and some ruins, what is left of his opponent's devastating fortress, after just a single punch by Saitama. It shows the destruction Saitama can cause just from being serious, and he's shown in the same frame to show that this is something he has caused. The fact that you get a detailed background and even the skies outside of the airship is to perfectly hammer home this knowledge that Saitama has wrecked shit, and he has wrecked it hard.
Once more, it may not be pretty, like at all, but you still understand what it is portraying.
One also shows clear signs of understanding of the tropes within his arts. Stuff such as making very serious scenes seem goofy and every goofy scene seems serious. One always knows how to fuck with your expectations. Same thing with the tsundere girl with the high cut dress that just barely avoids showing you her panties, and my personal favorite Boros, which is an obvious reference to Son Goku and the Super Saiyans.
What? An alien man that constantly talks about his power level, fires giant lasers, and has clothes that once removed ups his power level? Oh, and that fucking hair? Surely I'm grasping at straws here, I know.
Of course, when it's all said and done, the art isn't amazing, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't kinda taken back with just how much one understands to get out of his, let's face it, terrible art style. I mean, no matter how you slice it, Saitama's yellow jumper with the red gloves and boots will forever look silly. And it's first when Murata comes in and waves his huge art skills around that this changes. The art is definitely the worst thing about the webcomic, so for them to take that and give it to one of the greatest manga artists ever,
All praise be to Kentaro Miura.
it's kinda like powering Superman up with kryptonite. Without Murata, one proved he knew exactly what he wanted, and that's why I believe the comic got so popular that Murata wanted to help with it. One perfectly depicted that, say, he wanted every villain to be designed in such a way that you'd come to expect them to be a steady villain that Saitama would square off against several times, only to then BAM! All over the building you go. I mean, heck, this must have been kind of an easy paycheck for Murata, because he had the script and everything, he just needed to make it look prettier.
Which, let's face it, isn't exactly hard. I mean, it's like my ex just put a bag over there. Oh god, I'm sorry.
For the characters, I'm just gonna really briefly cover Saitama and Genos as well as talk about the various other characters in a broad term. The reason for this is because they matter so little that it's simply not worth the effort. So let's waste no time and get right into Mr. One Punch Man himself, Saitama. Saitama is an indifferent person. Even the mightiest foes pose no challenge to him, so he doesn't take his hero work seriously and defeats monsters with no effort. Since his hero work has begun to bore him, he is constantly searching for an opponent who can provide him with a challenge. The lack of any such opponents has led him to suffer from a self-imposed existential crisis, and he claims that his ability to feel any and all emotions has dulled considerably. He stated that he just became a hero because it was his dream and for self-satisfaction, and that before becoming one, he used to suffer from anxiety issues. Despite this boredom, however, Saitama does not ignore crime at all.
And this is where we once again can get into the main theme of One Punch Man that I love so much. But I'm gonna hold off on that for now.
Next to Saitama, you will often find Genos, Saitama's assistant. Saitama is supposed to be the ice to Saitama's fire, the seriousness to Saitama's goofiness, and the straight man to most of the jokes. Despite of this, he holds an almost unlimited amount of respect for Saitama, seemingly solely based on how powerful he is. But then later comes to appreciate Saitama and his code of conduct of being a hero.
And finally, we can return to the main theme.
So, we briefly touched on it earlier, but it bears bringing up again. The main theme of One Punch Man, behind all the stupid and goofy antics, is what makes a hero a hero. Cause as we've established before, it's not just someone who vanquishes evil. The reason why I bring that up again is because it becomes much more apparent when you look at the difference between Genos and Saitama. Because Genos is what we just talked about, the hero that vanquishes evil and is willing to give his life in the process for the greater good. And then we got Saitama, a guy who's even ranked beneath Genos, and he is exactly that because he doesn't care about the thing that the system judges the heroes on. And what I think is the main thing that makes a hero. The person who just wants to help. Saitama, even while being bored of the whole superhero thing, even while just doing it for fun and not as a profession, he's always up for helping people. It's like a tick for him. And he heavily shoulders a bunch of hate and prejudice just to help the world in general. He's not out to be anyone's champion. Heck, the reason he's below Genos in rank, the reason he's so low in rank in general, in fact, is because he doesn't care about the recognition of being a superhero. He doesn't scream about how good or powerful he is. He doesn't boast about how many people he has saved, because ultimately, that's not what matters to him.
It's the same people who won't stop posting on social media every time they do a good deed. Like, are you doing the good deed to be a good person, or are you doing it for the attention and likes?
Almost all the heroes you see in One Punch Man seem to have a thing where they need to talk about their powers, accomplishments, or worries about their outward appearance to the public. Sure, it's often played off as goofy over-exposition, but it's still there. Heck, most of the outfits the various heroes wear are even cool because they wish to get acknowledged by that. And then you got an idiot who looks like this. I mean, he looks like a half-assed cosplayer. And that's because that's exactly what he is. Saitama is a guy who just remembered how much he loved superheroes one day and decided to become one at a whim. He comes from a place of love and admiration. At no point did he think of this as a job or for popularity. He just wanted to have fun and help people. Genos works as an excellent juxtaposition to this, as everything from his move to his looks and even his theme music in the anime is stylish as shit. Now, this is not to say Genos only cares about looking stylish, but there is a clear obvious contrast. Genos' way of being a hero is by the book in this world, and it's by no stretch of the imagination a wrong way of being a hero. He still helps people and does it because he cares, but there's obvious signs of something more behind his actions, such as him just wanting to become stronger, and more than just 100% I just want to help people that Saitama has. These two bouncing off one another really help cementing this, and it's so cool to see them learning from one another.
Just like everything I analyze like this, chances are it's just simple stuff with no real thought put into it. Or there is thought put into it and I'm just completely wrong about what they're trying to convey. But it's always fun when a comic can make you at least think about stuff like this, right?
Besides these two handsome bastards, we got a whole plethora of various supervillains and superheroes that even if I wanted to get into, I would never finish. Cause oh boy is there a lot, which I suppose goes hand in hand with how easy it is to become both a villain and a hero in this universe. I mean, fuck's sake, one is turned into a half-crab man thingy simply because he liked crab too much. And then there's a super guy prisoner who is a super gay prisoner. That's it. That's his superpower.
And he is one of the strongest there is.
Most of the villains seem to mimic villains you would find in many typical Saturday morning cartoons or Sentai shows like Kamen Rider or Power Rangers. The heroes, however, seem all rather unique, though with a few obvious ones being the exception to the rule. Some are honestly cool, while others are just weird, further hitting home how obscure the hero organization truly is. Most of these, however, don't get that much screen time in the same way a villain of the day in a superhero show would. They appear, they do their thing, and then they fuck off. That's it. The main focus stays on Genos and Saitama, only seemingly ever leaving those two to flesh out the villain some more before
Somebody get fucked! Get fucked! 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 Get fucked!
Remember how I talked about tropes earlier? Well, everyone of the super high-ranked superheroes seems to purposely fill these tropes to the letter. You got the tsundere character, the super nerd, the old, the brain-dead powerhouse, and so on. It's probably not the case, but I kinda hope that it's intentional that these are characters, not naming any names, who starts out as trope character but then breaks those tropes and seem to be better off as a result of it. Cause One Punch Man seemed very much to be a comic not afraid of breaking the mold, and one seemed to know what he's doing, so it'd be nice if this kind of worked as a wake-up call to other writers that we cannot just keep using tropes and hope it works out, but instead strive to reimaginate characters.
But again, that's probably just me being over analytical. It's the same with the people who think that The Shining is about politics or whatever. Seriously, this is the stupidest movie I've ever seen.
The writing is an 8. I'll admit it's hard to review this comic solely on its webcomic premise when I got both the manga and anime in the back of my mind, but trust me, those two follow the webcomic to the letter. It's silly and well written at first glance, but diving into it you'll quickly find out that there's a lot more here than one might first think. The art is a 6. While one has an impressive understanding and knowledge about how to work a comic and how to present stuff, there's little one can use to defend the, let's face it, really poor art style. It's easy to read and has great conveyance, but sometimes comic readers want something cool or pretty to look at too, and you simply won't get that in this comic. The characters are a 7. While the characters are really interesting and I love me some possible underlying themes, I gotta look past my love for this comic series and be honest and say that the characters are rather one-dimensional. And while that may be on purpose, I'd still love to see them more fleshed out. All in all, the One Punch Man webcomic gets an 8 in reading experience. It was super fun to reread the story again, albeit in a less pretty and less spectacular fashion. Murata did a lot with his art, but ultimately what I kept falling in love with is its entertaining and mold-breaking storytelling. Give this a read if you like superheroes or manga in general.
I'll obviously always suggest that you check out the manga and anime. But if you want to read the comic for free, all you're really missing out on in the webcomic is the pretty art. And why wouldn't you want to read it? It's Riiser the comic. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next webcomic relief.
I'm number 1. One punch, that's it, I always win. Victory again. Power, get more power.
What's this? Shouldn't there usually be a Patreon thing right about now? Well, yeah, it's coming in a few minutes, but first of all, I got a super important announcement to make. Like, we're talking life-changing here, so I kinda need to make sure I got your full attention while giving it. I've added a thingy here you can click on that will take you directly to the video that's going to explain the entire thing. Long story short, I really need you guys' help, and it would mean the world to me if you'd be so kind as to go and check out this video. If you don't have annotations on, don't worry, I'll also have a link in the description, and it will be the very next video I upload, so it shouldn't be too hard to find it. Anyway, sorry for taking your time, please check out this video and let's get right into the patrons. This episode has been sponsored by a bunch of amazing people who are pushing me that much closer to living off of making YouTube my full-time job. One of these is Jordan Burke. Jordan doesn't want me to push anything just yet, but I promise you stuff is being made behind the scenes, so look forward to it. We got Amocin, who is working on a webcomic called Druids, which is a mature themed fantasy comic in the world of Warcraft. If you are interested in a more mature story from that world, check it out. Catlin. Kathy doesn't want me to push anything again, but I assure you I have seen what she has to offer, and trust me when I say that it will be well worth the wait. Luraiokun. Luraiokun, my good friend, is working on the adult webcomic called Yav, which is taking a different spin on romance and other very mature themes. Go check it out. Hitori the Artist. Hitori is doing art streams every Sunday and would happily love some feedback, seeing they are also working on a webcomic. So go check out the streams and go help Hitori out. Megan Smith. Megan Smith is working on 8 World, which is a webcomic that takes a completely different spin on the whole destined lovers trope. Trust me, you've never seen a romance comic quite like this. Soulblader. Soulblader is working on a webcomic called Tears of the Fallen, which is an action-oriented adventure comic about anthropomorphic characters facing off against demons. Check it out once it comes out. Shane Asher. Shane is working on the webcomic called Strays of Seraria. This comic tickles a personal fancy of mine, which is a superhero comic with anthropomorphic characters. It's a comic with a lot of charm, so check it out. Noah Gayson. Noah is working on a short one-shot comic called Black Scar Rose, set in a Wild West-esque setting with what are basically furries and supernatural abilities, with 2 other one-shots in the work as well. Go check it out. Harper Edwards. Harper is working on a comic called Color Me Pink, and oh my god, am I a sucker for this comic's art style. It just so happens you get a great romance comic on top of it, so check it out. Jake. Jake is working on a comic called The Drifter, which is a very mature, very harsh, and very down-to-earth furry comic with a lot of thought put into it. Please check it out. Angel Povedano Ruiz. Angel is working on Destined Flames, which is an action fantasy comic that takes you for a ride with both its awesome combat and its interesting story. Check it out. Olivier Latsky. Olivier wants me to push a comic called Jandora, which is a fantasy adventure comic set in a world of anthropomorphic characters. If you don't get hooked by the art at the first page, something's definitely wrong. Zachary Seligson. Zachary is working on a webcomic called Marcus. If you paid attention, his was the comic I compared One Punch Man to when I said it hadn't left the ground yet. Well, it has now, and you have to check it out. Kawai Lee. Kawai Lee is working on art, and you can now check it out on their DeviantArt, their Facebook, and their Instagram. Please, go check it out, because I personally think the art is super crazy adorable. Samantha Shakespeare. Samantha is working on a webcomic known as Champions of Siphon. A group of heroes are destined to defeat an evil tyrant, but they can never get along with each other. It's available to read on Taptastic, Tumblr, and DeviantArt, and is always open for feedback. So go check it out. Alex J. Alex is working on a webcomic called Death's My Bitch, which mixes both romance, comedy and action into a really interesting story about the Grim Reapers and how death is a normal everyday job for them. Check it out. Arthur D. Gonzalez Martin. Arthur is working on a webcomic called Refueling Station Murphy, which is a sci-fi webcomic about retail hell in the 21st century. Working in retail, I personally know that can indeed be hell, so I vouch for this comic. Musashten. Musashten is working on a webcomic called Illegal Tender, which is a webcomic about superpowered bartenders in a world where superpowers are illegal. That is arguably one of the best premises I have ever heard. Check it out. Agent Cheshire. Agent Cheshire is working on commissions and is doing a banging good job at it. I myself have commissioned them and I dare say I got my money's worth. Check it out if you want some quality art for a fair price. Achromatic. Achromatic is working on a webcomic called Pac-Man. If you thought that you couldn't get an interesting graphic and mature story out of Pac-Man, then boy is Achromatic proving you wrong. Check it out if you think I'm making that up. Shiv. Shiv is working on a webcomic called Key to My Heart. Key to My Heart is a series about CJ the cat and Shiv the Toon Chimera as they discover what it's like to be roommates and as CJ tries to win Shiv's heart. Please, check it out. Scott Fraser. Scott is working on a webcomic called Star Warriors. A webcomic starring Esmeralda, a deceased soul who becomes a Star Warrior, defender of the stars. Stars in the universe are wishes made by people and the Star Warriors must make those wishes come true and save the universe. Check it out. Nights to Dreams. Nights to Dreams is working on the webcomic called Fractures. Fractures is a fantasy character-driven story about two kids, a ghost girl and a fox boy, trying to take care of one another as a series of mysterious events befall them, making them question the subject of life and their friendship. Go check it out. Nightmind. Nightmind is my, no hyperbole, favorite channel on all of YouTube. Hence why I was rocking a Nightmind t-shirt in this very episode. If you want spooky stuff, great analysis videos and psychological shit, then this channel should be right up your alley. And last but definitely not least, we have Henry Volt, Arno Smet, Drika of Adrian, Insane Ukulele, Darkspeeds, Nicholas Knudsen, Jay Lee, Danny, Ghostlight Studios, Lizzie Shiro, Laura Ahmedchine, Gage, CS, Dylan Schultz, Shannon TJ, and Vivid Publishing. If you want to support the show, change my life and make it so I can live off of YouTube and entertaining people, please go to my Patreon. Here you can donate everything you want every month and you'll get a ton of awesome rewards for it. Just go to www.patreon.com/Riiser and that's with 2 I's. You can also go to TeePublic and get your hands on some of the new webcomic relief merchandise. The link is in the description. If you don't want to support the show financially, at least think about liking the video, subscribing to the channel, or sharing your favorite webcomic relief episode with your friends. I'll see you guys at the next webcomic relief. Take care.